What's up, everybody? This is Football at the Bar. I'm your host, TA.
And this is G Money.
So obviously, we're not at the same bar that we're normally at. I'm doing some traveling, so I'm out of town. But we definitely had to come here, bring you this unbelievable sport that we talk about each and every single week with our drinks. So super fired up about that. Before we get started, though, I do want to address one thing. We're getting tremendous growth. I'm talking about across the country. We've even got our first downloads and subscribers out in the UK. And so I just want to give all of our new viewers a quick
Yeah.
shout out. Glad that you're with us. All the people that have been with us since week 1, week 2, welcome back. It's been nothing but love. We do this out of passion for the game, but also for all of you. We definitely look forward to getting that feedback and getting those questions from you guys. So please don't hesitate to send us some questions so we can address those in the podcast as well. And
Yeah.
before we get started, yeah, what were we saying?
I was just gonna say one thing. We heard about you guys wanting a nut scale, so that is to come.
We're gonna provide everybody nut scale from mice nuts all the way up to buffalo or elephant nuts. We're gonna bring a whole
We're
nut
gonna
scale out.
bring it. Gonna bring it.
So, G, what you drinking on today?
I would love to say that it is going to be something magically different, but I have gone to Old Faithful
The
J and B.
gallon version.
Yes, I'm
Nice.
not drinking that whole thing. I got it. I put it in a cup. But
Well, for me, I'm drinking called Reveille Blue. This is what I was drinking last week. Loved it so much. I was drinking the Reveille Blue VS. Now I stepped it up and got that Reveille Blue VSOP, and it's very fine. So before we get started, everybody, please go subscribe, go like, go download the podcast. We're on every single podcast platform
yeah,
known to man out here in the world. We're on YouTube. Obviously, that's where you get to see our handsome faces each and every single week. So subscribe for us, like the videos, and download that for us. And with that being said, hey, cheers, and let's talk some
cheers,
football.
yada ying.
You know, I don't know if it's just me, but in these last couple of weeks, things have been a little bit weird and a little bit crazy, a little bit strange here in the NFL. I mean, we're having undefeated teams losing to teams that they should never have had any business losing to. And that same thing happened this week where you had teams, a lot of teams that should have lost to other teams, sit over here and are getting their block knocked off and are catching L's. Is it just me or do you notice something a little bit different right about now? Is it the season going into a lull or what are you seeing?
I mean, oh my God. First of all, I mean, we all are tortured, respectively by the the things that we thought were easy button for sures. Bottom line, this has been a week of absolute disgust. That's how I would classify it. There has been, whether you talk about the Raiders, the Rams, the Lions, even Tampa Bay. I mean, I would say the Lions, maybe you didn't think they were going to win, but they would. Nobody expected them to get boo-bopped.
Right.
There was at least a good semblance of those fans that was thinking, oh, yeah, we should be able to take the Ravens. Then Tampa Bay losing at home to the Falcons. The 49ers, what we just saw on Monday night, that was disgusting, the way that they lost. I mean, with the interceptions too, it's like, okay, Purdy is officially off the MVP list, and never to be seen again. Okay,
I
that's what
told you
I
I
would.
don't even have him on the list. Don't even have him on the
Well,
list. He
okay,
should have never
uh,
been on the list.
I had him on there, and now I apologize to everyone because what the hell is going on?
Yes, yes.
I really want to get on, like, and I'm going to do a small rant on my Raiders. I know everybody on here is not a Raiders fan, but the Raiders and that defense basically shrinking to a level below their competition. Chiefs, I mean the Bears were literally considered the worst team in the goddamn league, and you motherfuckers can't even tackle.
They lost to the
Peterson.
back.
They lost to the backup, and he looked like he was the back of the backup. He didn't even play D1 college. What are we doing? It was
Losing.
disgusting to say. That's why the disgusting. Then the Rams losing at home to Pittsburgh. I mean, I guess you could say, Tomlin, you got to give Tomlin a lot of credit because, he got this boys up. But damn, man, between Puka and Cup, you were supposed to handle that. Tampa at home against your division rival. I mean, damn. What is going on? I literally feel like I'm in some kind of like Twilight Zone kind of world because it was some bullshit happening all the way around. There are varying degrees of it, but these losses have been just egregious. And then, of course, the 49ers that we just saw, like, how in the hell do y'all lose and you supposed to be the Super Bowl favorites and your running back played, and Purdy's throwing picks left and right, can't drive him down the field. I mean, I'm about ready to freaking fall out and faint.
Well, I want to jump in here real quick because I think each one of these teams have different reasons why they're falling, especially for this week. One is San Francisco, I believe, started believing their own hype. Yeah, they lost a couple of players. They lost Samuel, which is a big loss for them. They didn't have Trent this week as well, one of their best linemen, a big loss for them. But Brock Purdy, I believe, was starting to believe his own press. He had already had, according to PFF, a bunch of troubling throws. So I think this team kind of believed their hype, and now they've lost 2 weeks in a row to completely inferior teams. So when you talk about the Browns last, which they have a great defense, but they were using their backup. They lost to their backup. They lost to the XFL star PJ Walker, and then this week losing to Minnesota when we know Cousins is only 2-10 on Monday Night Football. They became his third win out of 13 games on Monday Night Football.
So now
A
he's
game that
3-10. I mean, between him and Addison, I mean, I guess you could say a star is born with Addison because he was slicing the 49ers D up. And I didn't see that coming at all. I figured Fred Warner and them boys was about to just smash them and make it look silly, and it was the exact opposite.
It was the exact opposite, and they were still in the game. It wasn't a blowout, but again, they didn't play up to what they were being labeled as just 2 weeks ago as the very best team in the NFL. Now, the Rams and the Steelers were a little bit different. One is you have a coach, and coaching is everything. And you had two good coaches on each sideline, but for what now almost 15 years, I think 12 or 13 years, you have the Steelers coach that has had them performing at a above average level each and every single year. And the Rams were overperforming. So when you overperform, sometimes you're going to receive back to the mean. Even though the Steelers aren't a great team, but they're so well coached, they're so disciplined, and they're so hard nosed. And what we saw with the Rams is they don't really. They're not gangsters out there. You have Cup out there. You have Puka. They all look good. They're with the blonde hair, running around. Passing the ball. Exponentially all over the place. But when you're playing the Steelers, you have to come for a dogfight, and I don't think that team was ready for a dogfight. That's why they got mollywopped. In terms of Tampa Bay losing, that's a divisional game.
That's really what I saw because I mean there was no reason for them to lose that game other than Baker decided, oh wait a minute, my name is Baker Mayfield. I need to go back to my hookness, and he threw them interceptions right on cue, and that's why you don't pick him. And so I was like, oh, how dare I?
Hey. And what happens is when people show you who they are, you got to believe them. Baker showed us who he was a long time ago. We have to believe that man that he's not very good. And that team, to be perfectly honest with you, is not very good. I think that was another team that was overperforming. But really, the real big misnomer, and there were a couple of big misnomers this week. One was that the Raiders had, for us to think that they were any type of team that could sit over here and be looked at as a favorite. I mean, and they didn't just lose a close game to the Chicago
No,
Bears.
they
They got their asses kicked.
whooped.
They got
They
their asses kicked.
and they got whooped by a running back in Foreman because he was the entire offense. Everybody wanted to necessarily pay attention to the quarterback, which I mean, okay, you basically they had what maybe equates to most people in the league as a third string quarterback, but was their backup that is a rookie, and that basically came in there and didn't fuck up. That's all that it really was. But the Raiders couldn't stop the run, and they allowed Foreman to look like Walter Payton out there. And I was just like, what the hell is going on? I mean, ooh,
No,
I want to drill in on them because there's certain players like like Masterson. I know that our middle linebacker got hurt in the game, but the defensive linemen like Jenkins, it's like, man, you guys don't know how to shed a block. So you had, everybody was running for 5 or 6 yards after carry. Peterson, who's supposed to be Mr. Interception guy, he looked like he needs to retire today. He needs to put his paperwork in today because the minute that anybody comes close to him, he's like, "No, I don't tackle anymore, sir." And then Devontae, he spent this whole week, going off about, hey, I only play for greatness and whoop-de wop this and whoop-de wop that. Well, guess what? You weren't great enough, motherfucker. Yeah, they gave you about 6 or 7 targets for, well, I don't know, 60 yards or whatever you got. But when the rubber met the road, you didn't have an impact. I'm waiting for who's going to be the leader on this team because it ain't the coach. Who's going
it's
to
not
have
the
an
fact.
impact?
But let me jump in real quick because what
I'm
I
sorry.
also saw was that these main players weren't elevating their team like they normally do or where they're expected to do. Adams didn't have the game that he talked about all week. Cup didn't play the game that he was expected to play. McCaffrey, even though he got a couple of touchdowns, he still fumbled the ball today. So these great players didn't have great weeks. And so when these teams are kind of propped up by these great players, or at least remain uber competitive by these great players, and these great players don't play at the level that they're expected to, it really shows in at the end of the day their result. Now, I will tell you this with Adams: when you're playing with a backup QB, and we all know their QB is probably 10 years past his prime, probably shouldn't be in the NFL right now, and that's who's passing you the ball. Again, you got to get the ball from the QB. We can't put it all on Adams. I believe his mindset and his mentality is there, but again, he realizes the type of clown card team that he's on, and playing with a coach who you've expressed in previous episodes.
I'm
All
not even going to call him his name anymore. He's permanently known as Pigeon Nuts McGee.
so these teams have some challenges. But let's also talk about what else is strange that's been happening strange in the league.
Let me jump in on you because what I wanted to say this to you. I want to get your opinion before, right? Because I agree. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. This has been, last week I said it was like the upside down world from from that TV show. It was like everything. It could just be me. I think you're agreeing because you're going there. It seems like the refs are manipulating the game in a way, and maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm tripping. I don't know, but do you agree? Do you see that these refs are like kind of like doing a Vegas deal? They kind of like creating these outcomes to a little bit of an unfair advantage. That's what I saw. I don't know. What is
Well, there
your
are a few things. There's been a conspiracy about the NFL since the 80s. I've seen video from the 80s of people going on talk shows. The guy was going on talk shows talking about the NFL's been rigged. I've seen other videos talking about that seasons are scripted out. Some of the evidence that I have in terms of games or outcomes being scripted to have like specific teams in the Super Bowl. And let me give you a prime example of that is when Denver played the Panthers in the Super Bowl, and it was kind of like the Panthers. Were like the left wing team, and then the Denver Broncos with Peyton Manning were like the right wing team, and creating that dichotomy in the Super Bowl to get more ratings and what have you. So I have noticed and heard of these things for many, many, many years that it's scripted out, but I don't know if it's necessarily about them trying to determine who wins or who loses, but even more specific is them trying to determine how much a team wins or loses by because of their strong affiliation with with sports betting now. And let me tell you something, that's a serious allegation. And you and I both love the NFL. We both love this game called football. So I don't say this lightly, but what I do say is that context has been out there for several decades now, and some of these non-calls have been so egregious, have been so outrageous, and literally determine if a team beats or not beats the spread. That's where I'm kind of seeing somewhat of a kind of a link. And when you have a partnership, when you're laying in bed with individuals that if I saw a holding when Kansas City was playing, I want to say last week, and the hold was so egregious that Mahomes was able to run and was then able to get a first down to run out the clock, and they were able to cover. And if they didn't get that, then and they would have turned over on downs, uh, Vegas could have taken a big, big hit.
Won by a different margin.
Correct, the margin of victory. So it does appear and it does seem from the outside looking in that there is some type of funny business going on there.
Yeah, well, you know what? We the outside, and us outside on the yard looking at this shit, it look a little fishy, okay?
It does.
Because I saw, like, I'll take the Rams game. I see the way the rules are scheduled or set up, but Pickett, the Steelers quarterback, he was short on that fourth down. And what I don't like is it doesn't seem like the league is really more concerned about getting it right. They put it in the rule book. It was like, oh, it wasn't at the 2 minute mark or less, so it doesn't require official review. But everybody watching on TV, every Tom, Dick, and Harry watching it said, this motherfucker is short. And y'all gave him the first down. And then it's like, you don't have anybody in your ear, Mr. Referee, saying, no, no, sir. No, sir.
And that's
He
the
was short.
solution. The solution is having that sky judge that sits over here
And
and
uses it all the
all the
time. Not
games.
like, when it's convenient. Like,
Right.
come on, don't you? Especially when you're like, let's just say, we could even just say, change the rule to the fourth quarter. Because if you're going to affect outcomes of games, I mean, look, we saw a pass rush or a sack fumble that got kicked back, and they called a roughing the passer. I want to say it was like the Browns Colts game, it might have been, and that was so egregious. There was about 3 or 4 plays in there that was just egregious. The Monday night game we just saw, you know, yeah, you're gonna call pass interference, but they call him pass interference for like everything. Like, I can't even breathe on a motherfucker. I can't even act like I'm just, I grazed this jersey with my fingernail, and okay, well, damn, PI. It's like, come
Right.
on, y'all are making this a little bit not football.
Not football. And they're really trying to take the aggression out of the game. They just suspended the one guy from the Broncos, for excessive hitting. He's been fined four games in a row. This was 4 games in a row. This was his fourth fine, and they suspended him for 4 games. But I just think that's a way to control it. Rules can determine whether somebody gets the first down or doesn't, gets the magic 15 yards because it's a magical PI and so on and so forth. And that's how they can determine outcomes of games. They also do it with holding for linemen, either by
Yeah.
not calling it
Yeah,
or
and they
by
call
calling.
holding sometimes when it's like, man, That was an exciting play, and nobody gave a fuck about the guard fat boy who wasn't even in the play on the opposite
Right.
side. Nobody
Right.
gave a damn about that. He wasn't even affecting the outcome of the play. Knock it off.
We saw that in the Brady Atlanta game, in the
Yeah,
Super Bowl, where Brady uh, wasn't going to get a first down, and they gave a phantom holding call against, or excuse me, Atlanta had just got a first down, and they gave a phantom holding call to bring that first down back to give the ball back to Brady so he could drive down and kick the field goal to win it. And so these things can determine outcomes. And so I don't think it's the ref wanting attention or wanting to sit over here and be popular or for the media. What I think it is the league is going to determine kind of who they want stars.
and the owners, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's more profitable to have Tom Brady win the Super Bowl than it was Matt Ryan.
Yeah,
You know, uh, but it's crazy out there. Just the league is in it, and I wouldn't say a funk, but it's definitely in some type of lull, and things feel a little bit off in the NFL. Even though it's been some great games, but it's also been some silliness, some tomfoolery going on as well.
yeah. No, I mean, look, looking at just the terrain of the league thus far, it definitely feels like, this is going to end with the Chiefs and either or the I want to say some semblance of the Bills or the Ravens. I think
Please.
and then on the NFC.
Let's not talk about the Bills. The Bills sat over here and lost to the Patriots and they lost to the Jets. So
Yeah, they did.
they're the complete antithesis of the
Well, they
Dolphins.
clapped. I use my Clipper analogy. They just showing themselves as
Correct.
being the Bills, a la Clipper clappers. And
Where you
how the
say?
hell did you lose that game? I mean, the Patriots are dog meat. This is just like the Raiders. They're even though I hate to say it, even though because our loss was much more egregious, but it maybe not because how do the Bills?
The Bills are not a top NFL team. So let's stop that conversation moving forward.
Mm,
I'm tired of hearing them being placed on the same level as the Chiefs. They're not. They're just simply not. So let's move past it. They're above average team, but they're not a great team. They're an aging team. They have injuries. They don't have a complete team.
tell
And
it.
so they lose to teams consistently in a season that they shouldn't be losing to. I mean, at least Miami's losing to teams that there's a chance for them to lose to them.
Real talk. I feel you with that. Okay, so speaking of so we basically are talking about fake and real, right? So
Mhm.
fake teams, powder puff teams, teams that have been bloviated by the league, and then who's the real ones? Uh, Judging the performance of the Ravens this week, I almost have a twofold question. Is Lamar, did Lamar insert himself into the MVP talk legitimately? And are the Ravens for real? Like, do you think they're for real now?
And just the third question to that: are the Lions really for real? Because if you're really real, they were just being talked about as the possibly the best team or the top
Woo!
three team in the NFL, and top three teams in the NFL don't get their ass kicked 30-6 or 31-6 or whatever the final score was. So
Yeah,
it's really a three-part question. Now,
yeah.
let me start off with Lamar. Lamar is always in the MVP conversation because he's the most recent MVP, possibly the only MVP in history that won it unanimously. And we all know how great his talent is. And if this man is healthy, unequivocally, he has a chance to win the MVP. Now, from the Ravens standpoint, it's all about consistency. If this team can play like that, say of the next, what do they have? Another 11 games left in their season, or another 10 games
Mhm.
left in their season, 11 games in their season. If he can play, if that team can play like this for the next 8, 9, or 10 games for in that run, hey, watch out. We might be looking at the next Super Bowl champs.
I think he
If
needs like roll it off like about 3 or 4 in a row before I like go all in hands and feet. But yeah, I agree with you.
And now, Detroit, I still think Detroit is a real deal team. One of my concerns is can this team do it on a neutral field? Can this team do it on an outside field? Can Goff do it going up against an MVP level player?
Not to cut you off, I apologize, but that's what they're saying to themselves. And to all the non-Detroit fans, we will say, hell to the no. Because y'all find a way to trick the game off just like the Bills. You clip and clop. And matter of fact, you've been doing the clopping longer. So, but it's just the Detroit looks sexy now. It's hard to find a weakness with them. This is the first time since maybe I don't know since Barry Sanders looked good to where you say, oh, they might be somebody, or maybe even Megatron. I'll give them Megatron. This is the first time since Megatron had his rock or superstar season that where you're like, oh, they might be somebody. But I still feel like you're the Lions. Okay.
I think the Lions, if they're positioned correctly in the playoffs, having the 1 or 2 seed, you could possibly see them go to a conference championship because
Sure.
I believe that they need to have home field advantage. I don't feel confident with them in the third or below because then they have to go play away from home. And so
Yeah,
that's the concern. They need to be in the dome if they're going to play well, especially
I
that
agree
year.
100%. They need to be in a dome or yeah, it's a non-weather game, I'll
That's
say.
not weather game,
A
right?
non-weather game because with St. Brown and with them getting their Gardner Johnson and as their safety position that came from the Eagles, they got a couple of players and then they drafted well, and so they got a couple of players that can give them pass rush, and they got a couple of players on there kind of similar to what I was even saying about the Jacksonville Jaguars, right? Conversely,
Very good comp.
they if they have players that are on the team that are talented that may rise to the occasion, but they need that perfect storm. They can't just I can go anywhere and deliver the goods.
Mhm.
But and so now this is kind of like a prove it year because they could also very easily be like what I believe the Bills are, as they could clop, they could turn into you know some hookers and
Mhm.
trick the game off. But Jared Goff seems like he's been holding this like little, you know, this little edge from being discarded by McVay, and
Mhm.
this game might have just been an outlier for him. Granted, he was going against Lamar, and it's hard to play in Raven Stadium and all yada yada yada. But so now that I've given all those excuses, they got boo-bopped and they shouldn't have gotten boo-bopped like that.
Well,
You know,
it seems like all the teams that have gotten booed over the last couple of weeks are positioned in this week coming up. They're positioned to where for big comebacks. So
yeah,
next week's going to be very interesting. All of them that have lost, all the teams that we've talked about today that have lost, are set up next week to sit over here and have an opportunity to have real big bounce backs. And what we'll be telling is which one of those teams don't bounce back. Like, for example, we saw San Francisco lose a game they shouldn't have lost, and then they came back flat. San Francisco might be getting exposed. But again, they have some key injuries. So that's still a wait and see. But there are a bunch of these teams. Miami plays New England next week. Hey,
yeah,
you can't be losing. Your track record is beating bad teams. They can't lose to New England. If they do lose to New England, then McDaniels might sit over here and be exposed. And that was another topic I wanted to bring up is like there's some coaches out here that I don't know if they're getting exposed. And one of the biggest coaches that I want to discuss with you is McDaniels. Um,
Ooh, Lord
you know,
Jesus,
kicking
fix
weak
it,
teams'
Jesus.
asses, kicking weak teams' asses, and losing to above average teams, above mediocre teams. And,
Yeah,
and when you saw how Philly did it, Philly just really punked them. They just outmuscled them, and they also didn't fall for that all that shit that McDaniels does with with the motions and what have you. They didn't get bothered by that.
I will say this:
Mike McDaniels.
so you're referring to the head coach of Miami. So just in
Mm-hmm.
speaking on Miami, what I think Miami is in a prove it for this week because of everything that you said. You're right. They did get exposed. They look like they are a little bit of too much of a finesse team. They need to show that
Mm-hmm.
they have some grit because basically all it is it's not just I'm going to throw it to Cheetah and have a good day. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
no, you guys need to be able to run when speed is not the factor that will win the game. So if
Mm-hmm.
I need to crack some people, if I need to move some people out of the way, if I need to take a thump or two and break off of that and have run after carry, if I need to do that, and it's not just waddle and cheetah and have a good night, sir. Well,
Mm-hmm.
can you do that? And to this point, the Philly just said, we're a little bit more gritty. We're a little bit more grimy. We can basically influence the line of scrimmage. And just like how we talked about in week 1 or 2, like the line of scrimmage is where the game is really being played. So if you can't influence the line of scrimmage to your advantage, then you are soft.
There's three teams that are very similar: Miami, Detroit, and Jaguars. Very similar. Now, the Miami is built like a soft version of the 49ers.
Yeah.
Like 49ers is a fancy, a whole lot of, you know, you know, hide it here and then talking about over here and then boom, smoke and mirrors. That's what I was looking for. And so was Miami. Obviously, that coach came from San Francisco. So he got a lot of his stuff from Shanahan. But I believe still Shanahan has always built toughness into his teams, which I don't believe Miami has. Now, another coach that just really rubs me the wrong way is Arthur Smith. Now they won this past week by some lucky shit. They probably should have lost that game. But my big bone to pick with Arthur Smith is you have in the past 3 years you have drafted what almost everybody looked at as generational talents, and Kyle Pitts and Bijan Robinson, and neither player is being played um, like they're generational. I look at McCaffrey. I look at Cup. These individuals get the ball incessantly because they're talented. They have a
Yeah.
tremendous amount of talent. But these other players who are not just talented, but have been considered generational talents don't get the ball in the same fashion, don't get it schemed up in the same way, have to split time. Kyle Pitts is splitting time with Jonnu Smith, which was a reject from Tennessee and the
Yeah.
Patriots. And now you have Bijan
Tell
having
it.
to split time and getting less work than his number two, who is a rock solid Algier, rock solid running back, but is not a running back by that what anybody would say is generational or even let alone great. So this coach, and now they're barely winning or they're losing games that they should win, and as a team that's probably going to miss the playoffs by half a game for the third consecutive time, and people have the audacity to call him some type of offensive genius because his daddy started FedEx. He went to Yale or he went to Harvard, and so they want to label him some type of genius, and really what he is a motherfucking clown. And he does these things like he wants to piss off fantasy owners and DFS players to prove a fucking point, and he don't win. He doesn't win, and
Be
so
careful, TA. You might start getting death threats off of this because you exposing a whole lot of truths over here.
I'm speaking the
Okay,
truth. That's what
careful.
they call me, Mr. Truth. So you know, he's just really, really, really fucking with me right now. And so what are your take on the Falcons and why they have so much talent but get so little result out of them?
The Falcons are a more glorified version of my team, right? when I say glorified, I just simply mean they have uh, from, let's say, the era of Deion Sanders, and then the Dirty Bird era, where they made it to the Super Bowl. They have devised from those moments a little and assembled a little bit more talent than my team, but they still have that same loser ass mentality, and that I can, do things on the cheap and then draft real well and then do shit by committee. So, I would say maybe Bijan Robinson was somebody that you didn't need to go after if I was the Falcons, because Algier is good. But Bijan Robinson was obviously an obvious talent. But now what you have is you have marginalization because you aren't playing either guy to
Yeah.
develop them sufficiently. So now you got
Yes.
two guys who are really good in the same spot, and then you got a marginal quarterback. Maybe you should have tried to get a really fucking stud quarterback, because you drafted London and you got Pitts, and
Mm-hmm.
but they do things ass backwards in Atlanta. Now I will say that they improved the secondary, and they got was it is it, I think it's Dan Campbell that was the defensive end or defensive tackle. And Campbell, maybe his first name isn't Dan. Excuse me,
No,
but Campbell. I know your last
yeah,
name is Campbell, and you was with the
right.
Ravens, and you was wrecking shop, and so that was their sexy Aaron Donald light kind of guy, and so
Mhm.
they thought that they was gonna come in there and just destroy the league, and it ain't happened that way yet,
Mhm.
because y'all are still doing the bullshit, and you still trying to do this. Oh, I want everybody to touch it. It's not. This is not the world nations. This is not We Are the World. Okay, everybody don't need to touch the ball. Okay, give it to Bijan. Damn it,
Yeah,
give it
without
to
a doubt.
London. Give it to Pitts, and say everybody else hold a clipboard. But they don't do that. And then you got Ritter or Ryder or whatever the hell his name is. He's not good enough.
He's not good enough.
Period in the story.
Without a
And
doubt.
there is their play.
Hey, now, so speaking of quarterbacks that might not be good enough, right? Sam Howell. And so,
Ooh.
really, really, my thought process with Sam Howell is Sam Howell a reflection of Bieniemy, or is Bieniemy a reflection, or that their result and what he's bringing to this team is a reflection of Sam Howell and Sam Howell not being good enough? Because
Uh,
we've seen a slight dip in play since Bieniemy has left Kansas City. Since Bieniemy has left Kansas City, and so I'm sitting over here, and it really rubbed me the wrong way that the league can sit over here and hire the two coordinators from the losing team from the Super Bowl, from the last Super Bowl, but the winning coordinator from the last Super Bowl, for some kind of way, he had to take a lateral move. And his predecessors could get head coaching jobs, but for some reason he couldn't. And then that lateral move had to be with a quarterback that nobody else in the league perceived as a true starting quarterback, other than that franchise, which has
mm,
done it ass backwards for the past 20 to 30 years. And he's supposed to make chicken salad out of chicken shit,
yeah.
player. I mean, he leads the league in being sacked. He's about to break the record for the most sacks of any quarterback in modern football, and this is who
I
Bieniemy has to be judged by. It is what he could do with this bullshit, and so I'm starting to see out there people wanting to blame Bieniemy instead of going back to their original thoughts before the season started of Sam Howell's not a motherfucking starting quarterback for the NFL. But now their woes are and their lack of production is being blamed on Bieniemy. So you tell me, is it Bieniemy or is it this quarterback?
Okay, so you know what? Yeah, that's a layered question. But what I would say is taking it just a baby step back. what I really realize is the fragility of winning. So what I saw with the Kansas City Chiefs is the perfect storm was superstar quarterback, superstar tight end, marginal players around, superstar offensive line, offensive innovative coach, which was Bieniemy, and then they had defense that didn't fuck the game up. Now, you combine all that into the gumbo pot and you got Super Bowl victory, right?
Or the championship every single fucking year
Or
for
every
5 years straight.
single year. Now, you take one of those little elements out, that's almost like if we making gumbo and you said, "Uh-oh, I ain't got the roux, I ain't got the okra. Somebody pass me the Lowry's." Okay, I ain't got that piece, right? So,
Right.
boom. All right, so that's Bieniemy. Now, Bieniemy is taking his show on the road to show that hey, this is not all about the what's the head coach for this is the Scotch talking now. The Chiefs head coach.
Big man. Yeah, we
The
all love him.
cheeseburger guy. The
Yeah.
cheeseburger guy. Okay? So, okay, it's not all about him. It's also about me. And if you judge by the early parts of their weeks, and and you can see the offense of the 49, excuse me, not the 49ers, but the offense of the Commanders looked exponentially more disciplined than in years past. But
Mhm.
they still have the same guys. And how is not Patrick Mahomes. And that's what you're seeing because as much refinement as I would give Bieniemy to do, he doesn't have Patrick Mahomes. So this is just the fragility of not having the right quarterback. I don't think I actually don't think that Howe is a bad quarterback, but he's not a gangster. And to win in this league, you need a gangster. You need like NWA, like I'm about to Uzi everybody. You need a gangster, and he ain't that dude, and that's why his punk ass gets sacked, and then and he's like Derek Carr and his punk bitch ass. He can only be successful when it's prevent defense, all
Mhm.
that.
He's a poor man's Derek Carr.
He's better than Derek Carr.
Can't agree with that. I can't say that he's good. And this is a person that I was really rooting for at the beginning of the
That
season.
though.
He's a great backup. He's like a Mayfield who should be a backup. He's like our man with the Colts filling in for Minshew. He's a very
That's
high end.
still better than Derek Carr, sir. Now maybe you hold Derek Carr in a high regard, but Derek Carr, when expectations are put upon him, he turns into a $2 hooker. Not even a $10 hooker. He turns into a $2 hooker. I will do it all for you.
You're a lover scorer because I do remember you telling me about how Carr was good years ago. So you're a lover scorer.
Well, listen, that was before I learned the truth. Okay, how dare I?
Hey, I was trying to teach you the truth back in the day. You didn't want to listen to me. But here's what the deal is. Let's wrapping it up with Bieniemy. Bieniemy, I believe, um, is a very good coach. I believe if you give him somebody that actually is not a fifth round quarterback, but a true, first round. If Washington's smart, they sit over here and give up on this Sam Howell experiment. They get a real good quarterback because they have quite a few of them in this next coming draft and,
Mm,
and, and set Bieniemy up, who does have a mind for this offensive game. He's been around an offensive genius for more than half of his coaching existence, and let him really take somebody with some talent and couple that with his experience and with his knowledge and with his um,
mm.
um, acute game planning, and they could do something special out there with Washington.
Okay, I feel you. So I have nothing to retort to that because you know what you're right. But before we go into our fantasies, because you and I got eviscerated this week on the DFSs because of all this hookerishness that happened with these teams that should have been an easy button W. But before I go, down that path of despair, I wanted to ask you one last question. Because out of the random weirdness that happened this week, Deshaun Watson, he went out of that game early, right? And yeah, it looked like it was a legitimate injury and yada yada and yada yada. But I gotta ask you, because you was singing his praises early, just like how I was on Purdy. Is he choking right now? Is he for real, or is this injuries?
Well, one is I don't think that his injury that he has in his shoulder right now. I just went to the gym earlier today, and it was hard for me to even take a 5 pound dumbbell and do like this because my shoulders hurt. And guess what? I haven't played tackle football in about 2 decades. So when you sit over here and you're playing this game at
Yeah.
a level with the people that as
Yeah.
big and strong and fast as he's playing against, and with a shoulder injury, um, your shit's not going to be right. And what's unfortunate is he thought he could play through the pain and play through the challenge, and it wasn't getting any better. And then you had clowns in the media trying to conjure up some type of issue within the team or with him, and creating that divide and conquer like they always do with us in the game. And so I didn't appreciate that. Is he what he was, or is he what he was? No. And when you take 2 years off from the game, you show me somebody who's had to take 2 years off from the game that has come back and was the person that they were. So, unfortunately, no. I also think that coach is becoming a little bit stale. That system is becoming a little bit stale. And I also don't think that he is a quarterback that really flourishes in that type of environment in terms of the central. You
You
know,
talking about what environment? You mean the environment of pressure?
no, the weather environment. Playing in tough weather conditions,
It ain't
playing,
cold yet.
but but it's getting there. One, so you have that win. He came from a dome team, playing against real hardcore, like grind them out teams, like the Ravens, like the Steelers. I mean, even like the Bengals. These are teams that are built to play like that. And if you're a quarterback, like almost all the other quarterbacks are not built to play like that, you see performance dip. And so I will say that unfortunately he's not playing to the level that we know that he can and has played in the past, but that also might not be the best environment, the best system, the best division for his type of talents. I imagine him say with Seattle. I think we would have saw a much different type of Deshaun than we do over there in the AFC North. You follow
I
what I'm saying?
I know where you're going with that. It's just it's almost like what we said or what I was saying and you agree with about the refs, right? It don't feel right. It feels like uh you might be punking out just a little bit, just a little bit. I'm not saying that your shoulder it don't hurt. It ain't real. Lord knows, like you said, you and I have not and played even on the collegiate level. But we are judgers. So in my judgy way, I'm like, oh, you look like you punking out just a little bit. Now, I've had concussions from hitting people, but I ain't had my shoulder broke, so maybe I don't know. But it just looks a little punkish
Well, hold on.
to me.
This is why I have to push back on that. This is a man that had broke his ribs, and the shit was so fucked up he couldn't fly with the team. He had to drive. So he drove from Texas to Florida
That's a
just
bar.
still playing the game. And so that tells me that there ain't no punk in this man when you sit over here and do that, when you could have easily, when the doctor's saying you can't fly, could have easily missed that game, and you're playing for the fucking Texans, and you chose to sit over here and drive 14 hours just so you could play
Uh,
when your shit's
okay,
fucked up.
so do you think that the Browns, because they paid him 230 million, are putting too much pressure on him when he ain't right?
No, I think pressure busts pipes, and you have to put that type of pressure on a motherfucker that you're paying that type of money to, no matter
Mm,
what. His collegiate coach called him Michael Jordan. Said he's
mm.
the closest thing to Michael Jordan. So this is an individual that's known by people that know him that he can put and bear that load.
He's not living up to his own hype.
Well, again, this is my analogy I'm giving to you. You ever buy something like a tool and left it outside, and you know how in LA it can get misty and your shit's all wet in the morning, and next thing you know, you look up in a week and it's all rusty. Doesn't
Mm,
mean the tool don't work. It ain't quite as smooth anymore. You follow what I'm saying? You put
mm.
a wrench out there, and it's just not quite as smooth because it's gotten rusty. Doesn't mean you can't put some what's
WD
that shit
40.
that you
Yeah, yeah.
WD-40 up in there and get it back right. But even if when you spray the WD-40 initially, it still takes a second for it to work in all the grooves to get back right. We might
Mm.
not see him right, and also that might not be the coach for him. The coach that they have might not be the coach that's going to bring the best out of him. That coach is a running coach, and I think really what he needs is a passing coach that has really those pass concepts.
I can see that.
Like you said, it's not quite right there, but that doesn't mean that it can't get right.
Okay. Well, okay. He gets a pass because his team won in spite of him. So he gets a pass for this week. I'll say that much.
I would say don't bring him back. Don't bring him back until he is right.
Yeah.
And we still got a lot of season to go. We haven't even hit the halfway point. We're almost there, but we haven't even hit the halfway point. So there's still so much season to go. They still have the ability to make it to the playoffs. So I would really maybe I don't know when their bye is, but I would sit over here and really calculate that out a little bit and see um, what they need to do to make sure that last run for his team they can sit over here and hit it. First of all, real quick, I want to address something. Hey,
Go.
you got eviscerated because you saw that Raiders versus Chicago match
Ah!
in DFS, and
Now,
you
see,
ran
you
back.
told me you weren't gonna do this to me.
Well, but let me tell you something. I'm gonna throw myself under the bus because I sat over here and fell for the Packers playing Denver.
Jordan Love turned into I know I keep using the word hooker, but he was something different. It wasn't quite hook, but it was huh.
Right. So what it was hook is that fucking interception with less than a minute left or about a minute left.
Oh, that was
Sit over here and cost me a ton of money. And so there's
oh
no way in the world you play in Denver and after a bye and you play it like that. So you know what? I've won some money with him in week one. I'm completely off of that motherfucking train right now. But so it wasn't the greatest week for me from a DFS perspective. I split. I'm 1-1 with my overall year fantasy. But I will tell you, from a fantasy perspective, one thing that we did sit over here and see and witness is possibly, and maybe just for this year in this system, but that can help anybody that has a season long fantasy or moving forward in DFS. Is
okay.
Josh Downs? We might got somebody in him. That's the rookie with the Indianapolis Colts. He's meshing very, very well with Minshew. He had over 100 yards this week, and he's been consistently playing above his expectation. And so that's a real big stat that everybody talks about is EPA, expected points
Mm,
average. It's that expectation of above what you are projected to do. And he is performing above that expected level week in and week out, at least the majority of the weeks this year, especially when playing with Minshew. So for everybody, if you can get him, if you can go trade for him, go trade for him because he might be supplanting Pittman as the number one wide receiver on that team. He's
Mm,
actually, if I'm not mistaken, he's outperforming and he has greater stats than Pittman does, or are they extremely close? And Pittman was supposed to be the unquestioned motherfucker on that team. And Josh Downs looks like he's coming for that ass.
I'm
So,
taking notes from Yoda. Okay,
what else
so
you got for us on the fantasy note?
all right, so I'm going to be daring. I would say, from a DFS perspective, I am going to go out on a limb and say something that I never thought that I would ever conceivably say. The Jets quarterback, Wilson, look at who he's playing. Look at what he's done the last 2 weeks. Look at who he's playing. And I'm not going to give any more information than that because I don't want to be sued. However, think about it seriously because he might be a steal from his cost point being so low. And the Jets should win that game. I'm just saying.
Hey, who are they playing?
Um, I don't even want to reveal it now. I'm just going to tell everybody, look at who they playing. I don't
Hey,
want to reveal it.
well, let me just say this. You know, G, you have a great mind for fantasy. I definitely got to give you those kudos. But I will tell you this: I'll eat my dirty underwear before I play that motherfucker.
I know. It sounds like I'm a lunatic. However, it could happen.
I can't go that far. That's a bridge too far.
I
Um,
know. I know.
I
I
will tell you
understand.
that.
I understand.
But
That was my lunatic take for the week.
you got anything saying for us this week?
Okay.
Anything
So
remote sanity?
okay. So in the realm of sanity, I would just say that there's some obvious ones. Like I would take Jared Goff and St. Brown in the Monday night game. So if anybody who's playing the late Sunday night, Monday night games, or just the Monday night game straight up, uh, go Detroit hard. Now, this is me saying this as a Raiders fan. You might have even want to spill in Devontae in there because I think Devontae and maybe O'Connell could slip in and anybody in the Raiders skill position, you might be able to slip in if it works. But fuck the Raiders because we're going to get our asses handed to us. So St. Brown, and if Montgomery is available and he ends up playing, play him and Golf because they are about to boo-bop us because they got beat up by the Ravens. And so there it is.
Hey, what probably the most sane take you've ever given us, and so
And that's how you
yourself
know I'm
slap with that.
objective. That's how you know I'm
Hey,
objective.
that is objective. You're obviously not objective, but that was an objective take because you're sore right now, you're hurt right now. So, hey, great job on that. But I
Listen,
will say, just to
I
piggyback
damn
off
near
of what
want to
you're saying.
drive to Vegas and slap everybody with a white glove. Okay, across the face on both cheeks. Pow, pow.
Hey, but piggybacking off of what you just said, that's a prime example of what I'm talking about in this week. For those of you playing DFS, there are so many teams that in the past 2 weeks have been playing like shit that are in get back, get right
Yes,
spots. So just look for I mean, literally everybody that shouldn't have lost that lost in the past 2 weeks are in get right spots this week. And
yeah,
so, really it's just trying to find out which one of the teams that they're playing to get right with is going to give them enough push to have a very competitive game. And so that could be that stack.
agreed. Take Pickett, take Najee Harris. You may need to seriously think about those guys who've been dog meat. You know what I mean? But they're now, they have favorable matchups.
Miami, Buffalo,
Right. Miami,
the
Buffalo.
Lions. I mean,
Right.
all of those teams are in unbelievable get right spots this week, and so that's my encouragement for everybody from DFS. But
Agree.
before we get out of here, we have to make a real big announcement. We're very proud to announce, and very excited to announce that the NBA is starting on Tuesday, and our very first NBA at the bar will be going live. Super excited about that. So
Please
everybody,
believe it.
please believe it, ladies and gentlemen. NBA at the bar. We're going to have our flagship show with your host, TA and G Money, and then a daily show with myself Monday through Friday. Super excited about basketball season. For all of you that are basketball fans, along with football fans that are viewing us, go see us over there at NBA at the bar. What else you got for us?
Nothing at all. I just, we are about to rinse and repeat with the basketball. So there it is. But yes. All right, man. Church on the move.
Yes, sir.
Love you, bro.